Wednesday edition. Hump day, hump day. Orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason talking about dreams. Because I have my mock draft put together, my dream scenario, just like we did yours, Mace.
Yeah.
But my real dream is this young fella right here, Ashton Jeanty.
The question is, what are you willing to do to get him? And if he's the Broncos' dream, what would they be willing to do to get him? Something audacious? How audacious would you get, Cecil Lammey? How crazy would you get?
Well, I mean,
we want to talk about that. We want to dive into just how crazy you would get to try to move up. Because how high would you have to go for Ashton Jeanty? Pick number 5?
yeah, I think so. And I believe Dane Brugler had a mock draft today on this day, Wednesday, that had Ashton going to the Jaguars at 5, which I thought was, different.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's like, okay, yeah,
saucy.
Different for sure. And the Raiders are sitting there. Ashton Jeanty's own comments on a podcast or a show or something where I believe he used the word heavy. The Broncos have been heavy on him.
Broncos and Raiders, the two heaviest teams on him. Yep.
So if they're really going to take him at 6, and they may, for sure, then you got to get to 5. And to get to 5 requires a big move. Perhaps next year's first, which would be my first preference, because I'm in F them picks mode. If the Broncos really like him, and we have to decipher why this is getting out. And it's from Ashton, okay? It's not from per source or whatever. It's from Ashton himself. He said the Broncos are heavy on him. But I would prefer next year's first. We can debate that. But if you don't do that, Mace, then the answer to move up from 20 to 5 is Nick Bonito in 20.
So you'd prefer that to trading Bonito?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we all appreciate Nick Bonito, but I always ask the question, have we seen the best of blank? Have we seen the best of Nick Bonito? Would you, in fact, be selling as high as you possibly could on Nick Bonito? That's an interesting question, Mace. I'm not going to doubt him, but his pick sixes, like his defensive work, defending the pass, in addition to his sack total, yeah, that might be the best he does.
It might be. We don't know. I mean, sometimes the old cliche, you're never more blank than you are right now. Mm-hmm. You don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a question to ask of this entire defense, because the Broncos did just set a franchise record for sacks. Are you ever more blank? Is Jonathan Cooper ever more this than he was this past season? Is Zach Allen ever more this than he was this past season? I mean, Zach Allen here is going into year 7. It's something that looms over a contract discussion, an extension discussion for Zach Allen, but that's another show entirely.
For sure.
That's probably something to dive into after the draft, because that's when the Broncos are going to tackle contract extensions like Zach Allen, like Nick Bonito after the draft. But let's just dive into that suggestion for a moment, that if you're looking to move up from 20 to 5, it would take something that is a first rounder or a first rounder equivalent to go up 15 picks.
It's going to sting.
Yeah, it's going to hurt. If you move up, it's going to hurt. It's going to cost you. And that may not be enough. Like if you go from 20 to 5, it might be a first rounder and a second rounder, maybe a second rounder this year. And that would sting the nostrils too. I mean, I did my dream mock draft earlier this week on Monday, and my dream mock draft was Omarion Hampton and Harold Fanning Jr. And if you told me, okay, Mace, what would you rather have? Ashton Jeanty at 5 or Omarion Hampton and Harold Fanning Jr.? I would rather have Hampton and Fanning than just Jeanty. That's my take. Your mileage may vary. So, but let's just go in the universe where that idea, that second choice, instead of the first round pick, you traded Bonito. So it would be Bonito and the 20 for pick number 5. Well, in that case, Jonah Ellis becomes your starting edge opposite Jonathan Cooper, and you hope Jonah Ellis would take the leap that Nick Bonito just made.
Sure.
Dondrea Tillman becomes your primary backup. But you know what that opens the door to do? You bring in Von Miller as one of your sub-package rotational edges. Because
Something
right
a lot
now,
of fans want.
yeah, because right now, the whole thing with Von Miller, and we talked about this on shows earlier this offseason, it would feel good, but there's no spot for Von Miller. If you wanted to bring him in, oh, he'd bring leadership, yada, yada, yada. There's no place for him to play because based on what the Broncos have with Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Dondrea Tillman, and Jonah Ellis, there's no spot for him rotation-wise. If you put together the Broncos game day active roster and Von Miller on the 53, Von Miller does not get a jersey as of today because they want Ellis to play. They want Tillman to play. They want to see where they go. So in this wild scenario that I don't think is going to happen, I want to make that clear. I don't think this is going to happen. We're just spitballing here. In that wild scenario where Bonito was part of a trade to move up to 5, then you'd bring in Von Miller. He would be a rotational edge. And then I think you'd see the Broncos take an edge late day 2, early day 3 as part of that room. But maybe that guy is more of a developmental player and maybe they're inactive to start off and Vaughn is active in this sort of scenario. So
right. Like Vaughn can play a mentor to the rookie.
Yeah. So it's, I don't think it would happen, but I just sort of spelled out a scenario where, hey, you might anger the fans, but then fans might be pleased if that happened. Dare we say, because there's a lot of people who want Von Miller back, but it just there's no room at the inn for him right now.
Well, let me be very clear. I do not want to trade Nick Bonito.
I don't
want
either.
Ashton Jeanty. So I'm going to ask you the question, and everyone needs to ask themselves this question. This is a thought experiment.
Yes.
The step back that you would potentially take, although you and I like Jonah Ellis, but the step back you would take from losing Bonito compared to the step leap forward you would have with Ashton Jeanty. Isn't that discrepancy on the side of the ball that you need the most help?
Yeah.
You've got pass rushers. You don't have a back. And I see Ed here in the chat room on Facebook. He's like, there's way too many good running backs to be trading up for one. I classify Jeanty as someone completely different from the rest of the backs. And that's all due respect to Omarion Hampton, who is on my list. Because, this message changed once Jeanty said the Broncos have been heavy on him.
Yeah.
But there's one guy that I have a first round grade on. And even as good as Hampton is, been my number 2 for months now. He's not, there's a different level, I believe. He's at the top of the next level.
And here's something else to think, couple of things to think about. Number one, if the Broncos have been heavy on Jeanty, they've almost certainly been heavy on Hampton too. Because remember last year, they did a lot of work with Bo Nix and they did an equal amount of work with JJ McCarthy. They did the day with Bo Nix at Oregon. They did the day of work with JJ McCarthy after his pro day. So if they're doing all this work with Jeanty, if they're heavy on him, if they've been in heavy contact with him, we know that they had the formal with him in Indianapolis. It's probably a very safe assumption they've had the same level with Hampton. But Jeanty doing the thing with overtime. Jeanty's just, and we saw this at the combine from their press conferences. Jeanty's just a more loquacious type publicly than Omarion Hampton. So we're hearing about it because he does that type of interview that Hampton is not doing right now. I don't think this isn't like one of those, they're playing 4D chess, they're letting it get out, not letting it out. This is Jeanty just being more talkative at this moment than Omarion Hampton is.
Right.
So,
and that's just his way. Maybe if Hampton was on a podcast and someone said, who's been contacting you most, maybe he would say, but remember at the combine, we got a lot of this, Mace, and I'm curious as to why, but a lot of players are like, I'm not telling you who I had private meetings with. And I don't know if their agents told them to say that or what, but Jeanty is interesting. Right? Shedeur said that. Yes.
Shedeur clammed up.
Yeah, he did. So players were doing that this year, maybe for the first time. I can't really remember that. But on Jeanty, remember when we asked him, like, hey, how was it to talk to Sean Payton? He's like, I didn't talk to Sean. But the Broncos have been the most heavy on you?
it's fair to assume the Broncos that Sean Payton has talked to Ashton Jeanty. I think we can assume that at this point, that even though that he didn't have the conversation, if as Ashton was saying that he maybe wasn't in the meeting, I think we can probably put 2 and 2 together that they've had a conversation at some point in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well, Ashton Jeanty is a lightning rod. 96 to life is like he's not a unicorn. The Broncos are known to throw smoke. This isn't coming from the Broncos.
That's the thing. Last year it was the whole thing of Sean Payton at the league meetings talking about all the stuff they did with JJ, and it proved to be a misdirection because they'd already had the meeting with Bo. They'd already become enamored with Bo Nix. It was the old okie doke, right?
Mm-hmm.
This didn't come from the Broncos side. This came from Ashton Jeanty. So this is a different dynamic. This, again, different personality doing an interview. So
yes.
He's a bit more talkative. Like I said, we saw that from, we got that from just how they were at the podium that day. Ashton was a bit more talkative than O'Marion. Different people, different personalities. Doesn't mean one thing good or bad. Isn't anything on their character, whatever. They're just different types. It's okay. Like George Payton would say of the running backs in general. A lot of different flavors. A lot of different flavors of running back. A lot of different flavors of personality. You're going to find something you like in this group. There are so many of them. But of course, there's so many of them. It's why it is a valid argument. Why it's fair to say, okay, why would you trade up for one when there are so many? And you might be able to find what you're looking for skill set wise later. I mean, our friend Matt Waldman talking yesterday certainly brought up Taj Brooks, somebody where you could get a lot of those skills and get those skills later, maybe as late as round 5, or as you suggest in your dream mock draft. That's a segue right there.
Yes, very good.
As late as round 6. Let's go to Cecil's dream mock draft here, shall we? Let's pop that up on the screen right here.
Just let me dream, Mace. Don't tear it apart too much because we know mock drafts are there to be torn apart. But yeah, this is because I don't think they'll trade up for Ashton Jeanty. Okay. I don't want to get rid of Nick Benito. But if Sean loves him and they do, then that's what they do. That's how they have to do it. So 20 is O'Marion Hampton. You know, that you and I are succinct or in sync with that. In fact, there's a kind of a message here with our mocks in terms of what Denver's been looking at and perhaps what they would take that maybe people aren't necessarily thinking about. So let's discuss this wherever you want to start, Mace. Don't tear me up too much though.
I'm not going to tear you up. Well, we'll start with running back. We'll start with the obvious, right? So we're dreaming here and we're saying, okay, one of the big 4 drops. And they take one of the big 4. By the way, I was watching, I think it was the Chris Collinsworth mock draft. They were doing through Pro Football Focus. And they got to 20, and Loveland and Hampton were both on the board, and he had the Broncos taking Matthew Golden. I was like, what?
Okay, that's out of left field.
Yeah, well, it's Pro Football Focus. So,
they get a little crazy.
Their mock drafts get a little crazy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, this is something that if this is how the board is falling, I do not see this happening in any way, shape, or form.
And if that's the case, it's Hampton instead of Loveland.
Yes, exactly. Because I think they would go for the pressing thing that's right there in front of them. That, basically filling the last hole in the starting lineup. Basically, I mean, yes. They could go out there and play a game. If they had to play this Sunday, on Easter Sunday, not that you're playing football on Sunday, they could play a game with the team they have. And that's actually one goal of free agency, I always say, is that can you have a team to where you could go play on Sunday, which means that you're not tipping your hand draft-wise. You can, technically you can. You could play a game with Audric Estime or Jaleel McLaughlin or Blake Watson at running back.
Right.
Some combination. You could play. And because there are so many running backs that can be found in round 2, round 3, round 4, you're not telegraphing that you're going to take a running back in round 1. And in fact, there was obviously Mike Kliss had the report this morning that Travion Henderson visited with the Broncos. Report later today from Kliss, they visited with Walter Nolan, another guy who had a formal interview with the Broncos at the Combine. And Walter Nolan, of course, defensive lineman, and would probably be somebody that if they took him, they would take him at number 20. If they don't go running back, I'm a big fan of taking Walter Nolan. We sort of debunked some of the things that were said about him from the anonymous scout on that show last week. And I think the Broncos have the kind of environment in which Walter Nolan would absolutely flourish, have that talent channeled, and be a tremendous player for them.
Boy, my public comment on that show, which definitely drew the ire of some, Mace, my public comment is merely this: you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Some people did not like that show, but that's fine. You'll be okay. Dubba Ron says Al Collins at 51. I think Kliss had him in one of his mocks, the big Texas kid. But I've got Tyleek Williams. Now, you and I talk about defensive tackle, and we talk about freaks. Williams is huge, long, and freakishly athletic.
Yes.
So I just kind of want to see what that could develop into. And he's got rare traits at that size. Is he an unfinished product? Yes. Is he raw? Yes. Does he need refinement? Yes. But when you're that size and you're that athletic, it's a higher pick, Mace, but Tariq Woolen vibes where it's like, yeah, I don't care if he doesn't know what he's doing. He's 6'4", he runs a 4.2.
Well, this is the beauty of where the Broncos sit defensive line. They could take a day 2 defensive lineman who doesn't have to start right away. You can slip into the rotation and contribute, but you don't have to play immediately. He wasn't in my dream mock. I had Jordan Phillips, but I could have easily slid in Deion Walker from Kentucky. Sure. Another guy who's 320 plus pounds, but Kentucky thought enough of his athleticism to use him on the edge. That's how freakish of an athlete he is. So he can go inside, he can go outside because he's got that much athleticism, that much speed. So I like that idea of if you go D-line on day 2, take somebody who's got off the charts athleticism and then work with him. I mean, Zach Allen, okay. It took him a while, but he's got length. He's got quickness. Zach Allen is a guy who was uber athletic, but really didn't become Zach Allen player who started to dominate until year 4. And then I think Arizona was a little bit fooled by that performance in year 4 and attributed it to, well, JJ Watt had that renaissance year in his last season, must have been because JJ was getting all the attention. Well, fortunately for the Broncos, Vance Joseph came over, realized otherwise, and Zach Allen, second team All-Pro last year, but I dove into the numbers on Zach Allen at this time last year. Zach Allen actually had a really good 2023 as well. All the signs of his national breakout in 24 were actually there the last 12 games of 2023. He's been playing at a high level for the Broncos for really all but about the first 4 or 5 games of 2023, when really it was just he was getting accustomed, kind of getting his feet wet in a new environment. He started to take off in October of 23, and he's basically been at a high level ever since.
And that's why of the 5 players that could see new contracts, Zach Allen, Cortland Sutton, JFM, Malcolm Roach, and Nick Benito, Allen and Sutton are almost givens for me.
Yeah. But sometimes you have to be patient with guys that have athletic measurables. Now, of course, I'm talking about Zach Allen, and it was like year 4. You're hoping it happens a little bit sooner than that. Zach Allen played pretty well, but it, obviously the real leap started to happen in year 4 with the Cardinals. If you take, a Deion Walker or a Tyreek Williams, you're hoping it happens a little bit sooner. You're hoping it happens, say, year 2 or maybe in year 3. Kind of like Malik Jackson a little over a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
For him, another guy, length, athleticism, year 2 into year 3 was when it really turned on for him.
And then look out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. I wanted the Broncos to keep him so bad. My argument was he's got some special athleticism and you pay for special.
They went cheap.
Well,
they gave 2 offers to Derek Wolfe and Malik Jackson, and the guy that took the team-friendly deal was the one that stayed.
It was like the first one who took it was going to be back.
Yep.
And Derek took the deal. If Malik Jackson had taken the deal first, Malik Jackson would have been around and Derek Wolfe would have moved on.
Yeah, Elway did deals differently back then than they do now. I like the way they do business today.
I do too. All right, 3rd round, Terrence Ferguson, another guy who's uber athletic. I'm detecting a theme here, Cease.
Yeah, well, the thing is in the next 2 picks, both Terrence Ferguson and Kobe Bryant.
Yeah,
I'm not sure they don't go around higher than when I have them.
Well, this is the dream mock draft. Kobe Bryant. It's not just the athleticism, it's the tchotchkes thing. It's the attitude.
A lot of attitude.
This guy has dog in him. Like, to me, he's a dude who would have fit in the no-fly zone in terms of his demeanor and his confidence. Not just because, like Keith Talib and Chris Harris Jr., he's a KU product. He oozes confidence. What was he saying at the Shrine?
Who do you want to guard in the NFL? It's like Jamar Chase.
Yes. Give me the best receiver in football. I want to face him.
Whew.
Yeah. I love that attitude.
Yeah.
I don't want a guy who plays scared. I want a guy who says, give me the best right there across from me. I want to take him on. Like, remember like Chris Harris Jr. when he got here and he was like trying to move around in line so he could take on like Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker. And even that first camp, Brandon Lloyd, when he was coming off the Pro Bowl season, like he wanted to face the best guys there. Like B. Lloyd was coming off that huge season. Chris wanted to go against them because he wanted to face the best receiver he could at that moment.
Yep.
That's the attitude I want. Kobe Bryant's another guy I'd be thrilled if the Broncos got in the middle rounds. Like I want that sort of presence in my building.
Attitude.
Yes.
And more freaks when we get back to my mock.
Yeah.
Because
length. He's long.
Yep. And got athleticism for days and days and days.
All
Much
right.
like Rondé Gadsden.
Well, we got Taj Brooks there first.
Yes.
6th round. You think he might be there in round 6, or do you think he's gone by then?
This running back group is so thick. I mean, 5th or 6th, somewhere in there. But for these purposes, I was like, yeah, he'll be there in the 6th. So I think, it depends on when the running back run happens and then how deep it is. I think this is a go get your guy draft. So if you happen to like a certain style, like a Brashard Smith, if you happen to like that sort of Jaden Blue, right? If you like that sort of back, you can go get that back. So a guy like Brooks, who is like, well, he's big, but he does the receiving stuff. So people might be almost a little confused as to, well, is he a power guy or is he a receiver? He could do both.
He can be all of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a little bowling ball to him. I like bowling ball guys.
Well, Matt was talking about CJ Anderson yesterday. I was like, well, I love that.
Yes. He was speaking your language. I think he was trying to play to the crowd there. Play to the Denver audience when he said that.
Maybe, but
all right. Let's talk about your 2nd, 6th round pick. First of all, you're going 2-2, which has also been your dream. 2 running backs, 2 tight ends out of this draft.
Yes.
You go Rondé Gadsden, the 2nd out of Syracuse. We, of course, saw him at the Shrine. Lengthwise, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You remember watching his dad.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, remind me. I'll go a step further. I watched his dad in the Arena League.
Whoa.
For the Portland Forest Dragons before he got to the NFL.
Forest Dragons?
Seriously,
wow.
That was their name. Portland Forest Dragons.
I'm going to eBay to buy some Portland Forest Dragon stuff.
Yes. And he really does remind me of his dad in terms of the length. I mean, obviously playing tight end doesn't have receiver speed, but he's a great inside target. Like when you talk about the interior triangle that Sean Payton likes to refer to, he would be excellent value there in day 3 as that kind of big interior target, can make catches in traffic, excellent body control, excellent ball tracking skills as well from this guy. I put Luke Lachey down in my dream mock.
Love that.
But he's like, for my day 3 tight ends, to me, if you're going to take some shots like 6th round, or if you make a trade and you're picking in the 7th round, my day 3 tight ends are Lachey, Gadsden, Rivaldo Fairweather out of Auburn.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And I think Fairweather had a better week week than Gadsden. But as you see in my theme is give me freaks.
Yeah.
I want the guys that are maybe a little raw, but that can get stuff done. And playmaker abounds with LaJohntay Wester. He's I don't want to say he's my favorite over Jimmy Horn Jr. because I like Jimmy Horn. I think Jimmy Horn will be a better pro.
Yeah.
But Wester's just so you can do so much with him. Like a tiny Debo. He's like a tiny Buddha.
But not covered in fur like Baxter.
Exactly. Baxter. I'm impressed.
Thank you. I got what you were throwing down there. So I love Jimmy Horn Jr. I've loved him since he was at USF. Of course, from there he transferred to CU. The thing with Jimmy Horn is I want him to be in a place where he has a chance to do what he does best. And because Marvin Mims Jr. has got return on lockdown, he just wouldn't have that opportunity here with the Broncos. So as much as I'd love the Broncos to add Jimmy Horn Jr., as much as I like him, no room at the end. Kind of like going back to the Von Miller discussion. There's no room for him to get time. So
right.
So if they did add a receiver on day 3, give me Wester as well. If you're going to add a CU receiver, even though in terms of like in a vacuum, who do I think, like you said, who's going to have a better chance to be a better pro? I'd say probably it's going to be Horn. I was watching some Isaac Tesla film today. Of course,
he's a freak.
Yeah, Broncos have met with him. Yeah, he's a freak. He's a freak in terms of how he makes catches in traffic as well. I mean,
crazy body control.
Yeah. 2 guys on him, 3 guys in the, 2 guys on him, another guy in the area. It doesn't matter. Like he has my attention when I watch him. So, but there's a theme, right? Athletic, length, big.
Sean Payton likes that.
Yes. That's those are his guys. He wants big receivers. Wants big guy. He wants guys with length. And that's why to me, it's so interesting that among the players that he brings in for 30 visits is Luther Burden, because Luther Burden's got a lot of speed, but he doesn't fit that template. So
not the length.
Yeah.
But late round wide receiver is on the books for me because I think they do that. Cornerback is on the books for me because I think they do that. And I personally, again, it's my dream. I want 2 backs.
Yeah.
Even if you get Hampton at 20, who's the stud, I still want another back. And then I want 2 tight ends, even though Evan Ingram's here.
Yeah. Somebody's getting cut then.
Sorry. It's called not for long for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, Adkins or Troutman, man, somebody's getting cut probably in that room.
Not Adkins.
Yeah. Troutman might be endangered.
Or they throw the second rookie tight end. They throw Gadsden on the practice squad. You know what I mean?
Through. Yeah.
He takes Parham's spot.
Well, the other interesting thing is like this roster is reaching a point where 6th rounders aren't guaranteed spots at all.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's getting to that level.
Another reason why I wanted freaks is because this roster's so good. Like you can take a chance on the guy that's a freak and not a refined product yet.
Yes. Well, that's another reason why I think in the 6th round, in my last 6th round pick, when I did my dream mock, I just went ahead and said, okay, give me a punter. Because I want to get better at punter. No offense to Matt Hawk, but he's a bottom quartile punter, basically. You need to get better there. I mean, the Broncos wanted Riley Dixon back. They couldn't get him. They took another swing at punter. That came up short. Matt Hawk's a contingency plan. Matt Hawk was like third, fourth choice for them, but they're in the punter market and they're going to be looking at punters. Matt Hawk's competition is probably every guy who's going to be cut if they don't draft a guy, but I wouldn't mind seeing them get the punter who I think is in my opinion, the best in this class, and that's Crawshaw.
Pick up the punter like they picked up Will Lutz. Hey, what? You're not going to keep him? Okay.
Which they may end up doing. They may well end up doing, and that's fine as well. But there are plenty of ways to solve this problem.
Well, off air, Mace, because we can't have these conversations on air. You and I have had a lot of talk about dream scenarios.
Yes.
How do you like my dream scenario?
It has my attention. I mean,
I like it. I'll take that.
It has my attention. I mean, we're sort of in similar spots. I mean, we talk about defensive linemen. We're on the same page with the type of defensive lineman we want.
Oh yeah.
We're looking for high ceiling.
I could easily have had Walker at 51. Easily. Yeah.
I've had some discussions about Deon Walker with a few people. Like he's a polarizing prospect. I like him more than a lot of people do. I mean, I like him so much I insisted on doing the transcript of him at the combine. I wanted to talk to him. So specifically wanted to do the interview. And just everything about him has my attention. The only thing is because they moved him around so much, he's hard to quantify. And there are some teams that sort of look at somebody with that skill set and somebody with his size and like they don't know what to make of him. You have to be creative with somebody like Walker.
You have to know who you are.
Yeah. Do you remember DeMarcus Walker?
Of course.
I mean,
the Broncos, they made him lose weight and stand up, and they should have never done that.
The Broncos completely fouled up the development of DeMarcus Walker. That still ticks me off.
Yeah.
Because once they settled him just as an interior sub-package pass rusher, lo and behold, he did fine. Remember when they went against the Titans a couple of years back, he got a sack of Russell Wilson when he was playing for the Titans, right? Like he pretty good once everyone started using him as he was intended to be used, which was sub-package interior rusher, take advantage of his length and quickness against guards who had a little bit of a slower twitch. Like, okay, yeah, he was a mismatch. Like you didn't want him out there on 1st and 10. You want him out there on 3rd and 8, taking off and making a move on the inside shoulder. Like, hello. Like you got to, it's just a matter of like playing guys and using them according to their gifts. That's to me, that's coaching. Like, it is the one thing that I will say that the Broncos do really well right now. And I think they do better than they have in some time. It's a credit to Sean Payton. It's a credit to the staff, credit to the philosophy. They really do focus on saying, okay, I've got this player. How do I maximize him? Sometimes it takes time. Like it took time for them to figure things out with Marvin Mims Jr., but eventually they seem to do a good job of really sitting down, brainstorming, being thoughtful, and coming up with a way to say, how do we make sure this person's gifts are maximized within the context of the team at large? I think they're more thoughtful about this than most operations are.
You can say you're draft and develop. You actually have to develop.
Yeah. You have to commit to that.
Yes.
And that you have to put the guys out there and you have to live with the bumps. I mean, and that takes patience. And that means you get rocked sometimes. Okay. Like you're fortunate with the Broncos, like with Bo Nix. it didn't last maybe as long as everyone thought it might. Fortunately, he learned fast. But those first 2 games was rough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? There may be some more rough games coming. Look at CJ Stroud this past season.
Right.
It's okay.
Then he got to the playoffs and he got it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. There's still going to be a couple of days coming when it sucks. It's all right. It's all right.
As we've seen in certain places, Mace, the winter will show up and ask you, what have you been doing during the summer?
Mm-hmm.
Collecting nuts.
Yeah. Or the summer comes, said, what were you doing during the spring?
Exactly.
During the spring, I was going through fumble rates for running back prospects. We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about turning these Monday and Wednesday shows into an article. I can write my stuff and give you a little bit on each guy if you want to do yours. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't do 7-round mocks. I think you're crazy if you do. Dane Brugler, Chad Ryder. But 7, a full mock for the Broncos. You and I have just done it on 2 shows this week.
Well, you're not doing a 7-round mock for the entire draft, are you?
God, no. I'm doing one mock of the 32.
I did that once. I did a
You're crazy.
Mock. It was the craziest exercise I've ever done. Like,
yeah, you're nuts.
There really comes a point where you're just like, okay, it really is. Sometimes you're like, all right, I've picked every position but this for team X, and I've gotten around 7. Okay, I didn't get this team a safety, and it's just like, who's the next safety on my board? Okay, fine, put him here. That's it. That's what you're doing when you get to that point. You're really just, you're literally going down a list and saying, okay, fine, who's next? That's it.
We're going down the list.
Yeah.
And asking y'all how to help us out on YouTube. But Mace, how can folks do that?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you never miss vid.
By the way, day tomorrow, because we hear from Sean Payton and George Payton. It's their pre-draft media availability. So we'll have some comments from them tomorrow. I'm sure they won't reveal much. It'll be coy, as usual. I'll try to ask some philosophical questions because those tend to get responses we can actually use. That's the thing. I like to ask questions that yield a response that actually gets something usable rather than something where it's not, it's going to get a stonewall, right?
Ashton Jeanty said you guys have been heavy on him. Well, we talked to a lot of backs.
Yeah.
That's what that's going to get. Somebody's going to ask it just because that's the kind of soup of the day. Ashton Jeanty said you talked to him more than anybody. We talked to a lot of backs.
Yeah. We talked to a lot of guys in this process. We talk to everybody,
See a lot of girls, see a lot of guys too. That's hot. Water boy. Anyway, he's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT is a what? It's a BFT.
BFT.
You know that. Thank you very much. He's Mace. I'm Cease. Stay tuned. Would you please stay frosty?